We're so glad that you're here this afternoon, and we want to get started on time. I know that sometimes people run a little late, but we want to make sure we have enough time to do everything we're going to do. And I am so glad that you came for our applesauce making, or canning applesauce. How many of you love homemade applesauce? It's so much better than the other applesauce. So one thing, I know some of you are new here. You haven't been here before. And our Lost Skills program was started to be a community service, for our community. And this is our second year of doing it, and after COVID and all the other upheavals, which aren't over yet, I'm sure, we thought that people really need to know skills that help them to live more sustainably. So many people live totally by the grocery store and things like that, And so we have been doing programs, like I said, this is our second year. And these programs range from gardening to canning, bread making, pantry management. We've done auto maintenance, and a lot of herbal things. We've done some programs on herbs too. So all of that, if you look on your flyer, and it should be in your thing, the flyer has a list of what's coming up, and unfortunately we only have one more this year because we do it on the last Sunday of every month, or not the last Sunday, I'm sorry, the fourth Sunday of every month. And so, is that okay? So we are going to be not having it in November and December because of Thanksgiving and Christmas. But thanks to our friend right here who goes to Florida in the winter time, she asked us from the beginning to live stream it, which then we are able to, put it on YouTube. So you have instructions there how you can look at other topics that we've done, okay, and how you can find them. So we want to have a word of prayer so that we have a better, the Lord will help us in explaining things well for you. We want to make sure that you can understand things. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you for each one of these people you've brought, and I know they're wanting to learn more about how to provide for their families. And I just pray that you will help us as presenters to be able to present things clearly, and that your presence will be here. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, I would like to introduce my helpers today. Paul Reynolds is a very avid canner. He and his wife, Diana, here, they do a lot of canning. And Melody Maratz is also a big canner and gardener, and we're just buddies, I think, because of that. And thanks to our audio people, Don Savell and David Maratz, and Teresa is helping also, so thank you to them. Okay, we're going to start out with showing you what we do to start canning. Well, first of all, I wanted to say homemade applesauce at the top of your handout. It tells all the things you can do. It doesn't just taste good, but you can use it in baking and cooking and stuff like that to replace your oil. I do not put oil in my bread. I use applesauce. Guess what? I can it. It's cheaper than oil, right? So, And so what kind of apples do we use? For this time, we used what was available, but it all kind of went together well. One thing you want a sweet apple, you want a tart apple, and then you want a soft apple, usually. That's what my sister always does, and they get really good applesauce. So what we used was Golden Delicious. That it can be sweet, but it is sweet. And Jonathan or Jonna Gold, we used Jonna Gold because that was what was available where we went. And that has a little softer texture. And then we used Honeycrisp, which kind of has the tart sweet. Okay, and Paul says that he really likes Rome, Golden Delicious, and Fuji. And where's your mic? Do you have it? Oh, I'm sorry. What do you like to use, Melody?
A mix of apples is definitely the way to go.
Up
So
to you.
it can be a mix of your favorite apples. For me, it's, Honeycrisp and Gala, and I like Jonna Gold.
Okay.
And lately, more and more of the time, I've been doing a lot with Jonna Gold, and I'll throw in some Honeycrisp just for extra sweetness and stuff. But I like the Jonna Gold because they're not as expensive, and you get number 2s. You don't get the number 1s, the ones that we like to eat at the grocery store, like number 1s. But if you ask for number 2s at apple processing places, they have like a ding or a chip, or they might have a little bad spot, and that's a whole lot cheaper. And you're going to turn it into applesauce anyway, so it's a good way to go.
And these are what the seconds are, number 2. They might be smaller. They might be, some of them are bigger. Have little dings on them and stuff like that.
They're still pretty good.
Yeah, they're still good apples. You make really good applesauce.
But I like the Jonna Gold too because they tend to be bigger. I get mine at what's that place you just got your?
It's called Hildebrand's now. Hildebrand's Farm up in Berrien Springs. They have a processing plant on Shawnee and Redbud.
Right on that corner.
Corner of Shawnee and Redbud. Yeah.
Yep.
Is Hildebrand Farms, and that's where I've gotten my apples there for years. And like the Golden Delicious and the Jonna Golds were each $9 for a half a bushel.
A bag like this.
And it's about 21 to 23 pounds, something like that. Anyway, and the Honeycrisp were 13. Of course, those are higher price.
Yeah, so you do more of the other kind of apple, and then you throw a few Honeycrisp in.
Yeah.
And it gives that nice. And Gala is nice, too, although they tend to be a smaller apple, so I don't mess with them as much. But
Okay, very good. So now, Paul, would you like to show us how you like to do your apples? He's going to show you the slick, the more upgraded way. We'll show you the chop way.
First of all, I'm kind of an oddity. I'm of the male gender, and I enjoy canning. I've done it since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And
are you aware that we have about 4 men in our congregation who like to can?
yeah, it's good.
We do. They're big canners, too.
I have cans. My first job was hauling the garbage out. But I learned a lot from watching Grandma and everybody else can. Anyway, the way I do applesauce, I need some apples there. I cut them into small slices with an apple peeler corer. And it's going to be hard for me to hold this microphone and work with both hands. But these come in several different sizes. The largest one is the best. It's just got 3 prongs here that you impale the apple on. And by doing this, they cook a lot faster. And we just run it through there, and it takes the core out. I, for one, don't like all the blossom and the seed parts in my applesauce. And I forgot the cutting board and the knife here, too.
Oh.
There we go. It's over here. It's on this side. We'll get organized yet. But I just slice them in half. and in the pan they go. When we do applesauce, we have canned a whole bin of apples and sauce and pie filling and dried apples and everything. It's a major production at our house when we do it.
You have people with stations?
It's just the two of us. Anymore, yes. It used to be our kids helped us as well. Now I have another toy here that I just recently picked up that makes it, I've got a couple of them over here, Martha. There we go. This is just for making apple pieces at home for whatever, or you could use it for cutting your apples into, and they all go flying everywhere. Let me do a couple of them, then I'll pass them out to all of you, and you can all have a snack while we're working. There we go. It's just a simple machine that works real well. So,
Okay.
but we just fill the pot up, put a little water in the pot, and turn it on and cook them till they're soft. By cutting them with this, they're real thin slices. They cook a lot faster.
Okay. Melanie's going to show you how she does it.
Well,
Here we go. Pass the
I
microphone.
love that idea, but some of them are better than others. Oh, thanks. If you have a mealy apple, that won't work very well. You have to have a nice firm apple, so fresh is best. And you also have to watch out for that end blade there. Well, maybe Paul, at some point, can you show them how to take that thing off the end? That'd be good. All right. So what I do is I usually have a big bowl at the sink. I fill it with water with the apples in it. I do a rinse real quick to another bowl, and then I go through, and as I go through, if I see any problems, I'll just take them out quick. Sometimes I'll take them out and do them like that, and then somebody else down the line will go like this. So we just kind of imagine where that core is. In this case, I missed it, so I'll deal with that later. And then I just do, because the smaller the pieces you've got, now that's perfect. That's really nice and small. But the smaller the pieces you've got and the more uniform, the easier it's going to cook down. So. And then I'm throwing them in. Now obviously this is different sizes, so it will cook a little longer that way. But that's how we do it when we don't have something like that.
And I just take you and hold it for me.
Yep. So
We all do just differently.
more convenient for you,
Yeah.
safer for you.
And usually I have, hold on.
Yeah, we have our favorite knives.
These are my favorite knives. And I just cut it in quarters like that. And then he talked about the blossom end. I'll show it to you there. This one doesn't have anything there right now. But what I'll do is I'll just do like that. And when you do the blossom end here, you just do a little tip like that. The reason we like to take the blossom end off is these little things get to be floaties in your applesauce. So most of us do it like that. So that's about it. Now you got all three methods.
Now, the seeds of the skin are going to come out later.
Yeah.
The seeds in the skin will come out later, so just putting that in is not a big deal. But it will cook down like this.
So we're going to, shall we just cook this much? I think I'm not going to put all this liquid in. So we're going to start liquid.
So you always want to start with liquid in the bottom. This is going to cook down and have water in it, but not right away, not until it gets
So
soft.
for a really full pot like this, you would probably put about a cup of water, or a scant cup of water. I'm not going to put it quite that much because we don't have this totally full. I'm putting, I just learned from the place where I picked up the apples, and I kind of like their method. Or I thought I'd try it, so I thought we better do it here because all of that applesauce we made the other day has apple cider in it. My first time. of doing that. I'm not going to put that whole bunch in.
Combine the water too, or just the
I combine, I put, for one like this, if I was doing a full pot, I would do half a cup of apple cider and half a cup of water. 50-50, so, okay. I'll put a little
And I've
more.
done it with just water and just
And it's just
cider
fine.
before, and it's
Oh, you've done it with just
But
cider.
the cider is a great idea because it gives you more intense flavor and more sweetness.
But you also want to be careful because it could scorch. You know, so you'd want to heat it up a little bit slower. So we're going to put this lid on, and that's going to start cooking down for us. We're going to want to, got it? And this is our first time using this induction burner, so bear with us. We're hoping that it works pretty good. So, yeah, go ahead and finish your demo, and then we'll remove these. Oh, here. Here, do you want?
I found the mic. You just, when you finish cutting that apple, you just, it comes off.
A little hard there
But
sometimes.
this also works as a peeler and a corer. So if you're, like we make apple pie filling and can it, it'll take the skin off for you as well.
Just have to be careful. Make sure you know which way you're doing it because this is pretty sharp.
It is sharp. So,
Okay.
They've got demos online too to show you.
Now we're going to kind of regroup just a little bit. We're going to bring, well, first of all, let me set that up first. This is the mill that we're using. There's all kinds of mills, and I'm sorry, I did not try to find one of those round mills, you know. Are you familiar with those that you do them one way and then you kind of go back the other way to clear off the stuff? Is that the Foley mill? Okay, I couldn't remember the name of it. But that will make applesauce too if that's all you have, you know. Or we're showing you a really nice mill here, although I want to tell you, this is 45 years old. Yeah, I got it as a wedding present. So it's 45 years old. They do hold up well. So this is called a Victoria mill. And you'll find a lot of different ones. Some of them nowadays have more plastic parts. If you can find anything at a garage sale, Paul has found them at garage sales, different places. So, you know, grab it up because they do, they're really good. So what I'm going to...
estate sales.
Okay, yes. Yeah, that would be estate sales. So can all of you see this? And he's going to have it up there, I think, too.
Let me hold that for you.
Okay. So we secured this already. There's a little pin that turns down at the bottom. And we did that because we had to find, that's the hard part, finding something that fits that, okay? This is too wide. This is too wide, just barely. So at home, I have one of these taller swivel chairs, like breakfast table chairs, and we do it on that.
They do come with suction too. Some of them do.
Okay.
The more plasticky kind. This is a really nice one.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the chute for the applesauce. I put it right here in this little groove and tighten it up. And then this goes on top. This is, the auger goes in here, but before I put that in, I'm going to put this gasket on, which is really important to put the gasket on. And then you can put your auger through there. There's this little thing, and if you don't put the spring on it, it's just going to kind of fall out the other end. So you need the spring on it. Oop, wrong way. There's a square end that fits into a square in here. And this is a little bit, okay. It's a little bit tricky part. That thing has that, I wouldn't say bolt, whatever, you know, that has to fit into, through here, thank you. And then you kind of tighten it down here. Oh, I think this is down. There we go. Your two little screws here have to come out, and they fit in here. Each side has a little place that it goes, and of course, when you buy one, if you get directions with it, then that'll show. Or you could go online, I'm sure, and find how to do this. So you tighten these down really tight here, and then the last part is the handle, and I don't know that unless we turn this. Okay, can you get that? There's this little spacer, I guess, that goes on there, and then the handle goes on, and there's a space here that is the shape of that hole, okay? And you gotta line that up, and then you put your thumb screw on.
Now, while Martha's doing that, I'll mention that I have a plastic one like this, which, you know, and it has suction cup that will suction down to my counter, but it comes off periodically, so that's kind of a hassle. This would be nicer. But you also don't have to use this. If you don't mind having really smooth applesauce, you can Vitamix. You know, you can Vitamix blender, so that you saw how I took the core and stuff out. I actually like to leave the skins on because I like to put them actually into my applesauce, but you obviously cannot put them in whole pieces, so I blend it. And it's going to be a little bit darker, but then I skip this. So. Yeah.
The other thing.
But it is smoother. It's not as tasty. I like it chunkier, but hey, if you want to skip a step.
There was something when you were talking about that came to mind, and right now.
With the plastic Victorio or with the Vitamix?
Oh, no, because this is not plastic. Because this is not plastic. This cone here, which is metal, can look like it's rusting, okay? What I do after I wash it, I take oil on a paper towel and just oil it before I put it away, and inside and out.
And when I'm handling hot apples, I actually throw a pair of exam gloves on. Do you guys do any of that? Do you ever use gloves, like exam gloves? Like,
oh, no, I don't.
I do it because when I'm handling hot things, and even when I'm handling hot jars, I can do it by hand and not burn myself more easily. So, and if something hits me while I'm doing stuff, it's not going to burn. Yeah, we need to do that. And normally you're going to have a completely non-carpeted floor because it can be a real mess.
The thing is that the stickiness will follow this line down here. And we have to put a bucket or something under there, you know, it follows right down to the bottom of this.
How many people have done applesauce, like as a kid or, adult? So you know that the floor can get really tacky and sticky.
Right. See how mushy it is? The mushier, here, I can do it with this if you want. The mushier it is, the more applesauce you're going to get out of it. if it's not quite as mushy, it's all going to go out here. Okay, that's enough.
Unless you Vitamix it.
Yeah.
Then you can have the apples not be as cooked.
Right. So then you, okay, your applesauce is coming out this left, well, my left, this little chute down here. And then your peels and stuff are all going to go out here. So you have to have two different containers. And it also matters how tall your pans are. I use a 9x13 pan on here, and then like I use a bread pan down on this side, the regular. So you just, most of your liquid is going to go out at first, and Paul, if you can bring that big bowl over here, we'll empty it into there. And usually, I just recently misplaced my plunger. It's round, it goes right down in the hole. And just recently, my husband and I are like, okay, who put it away? Where have we seen it last? Yeah, your kids like to turn this.
They just need to go slowly, moderately, because if they go too fast, it'll go psh.
Well, they learn pretty fast.
Especially that
Hang on, I
plunger.
got it. Let me have your little cup there.
Okay. What are you going to do?
Put it underneath the pan
Okay.
so when I pour it out.
Okay. Here.
And there's the apple.
Smells good.
And one thing that you'll notice, oh, should we have that? Do you want to go stir that? One thing that you'll notice, I like to mix all my applesauce in a big thing. I don't care how many kettles of apples I do. I like to fill this almost full, not, and mix it up, because each kettle might have a little bit different taste according to what you have in there, So you mix it all up and then you pour it in. Now, when you do like 1.5 bushels to 3 bushels of apples all in one day, you're going through several of these, Okay, yeah, let's. Okay. So we'll continue cleaning. Doing these. And one of the things is afterwards, cleaning this thing up, trying to get all the applesauce off of the metal tube and stuff like that. And like I said, it starts dripping down here pretty quick. So you want to be careful of that. One thing, applesauce is not the cleanest thing to do. You definitely have to clean your kitchen after that.
But it's one of the easiest things to can.
Oh, it is, and it's the yummiest. I think we're good. Okay, so that's all in that one, right? No. We just have this one here. We didn't make a ton. We could have made more, but we just, okay. And then you just kind of take some kind of a spatula or something. Are you still okay? And you kind of push this out. Can you tell all three of us have done applesauce? We haven't done it together either, have we?
Can be a fun excuse to get together with the family.
You know, my son was telling me up in Walla Walla, Washington, he has some friends that go to a church that they buy a huge, I don't know whether one of those tubs or 2 tubs, bins of apples, and they all get together at church and they can apples together, and then you bring your own jars and stuff. And wouldn't that be fun? They have a whole setup. But anyway, okay, how's that coming? One thing that I find this stuff, it takes a little while to get going. Even on the stove, you turn it to about medium high. You don't want it to burn too much, you know. But medium high, and then you, it seems like it's just not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, it starts getting soft, you know, and it just really finishes off pretty fast that way. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do before we go to canning it or to putting it in the jars, we'll try to see if that will finish up for us. I am going to talk about apple butter. Okay, you got.
All about getting the jars ready.
Oh yes, let's do that. I'm sorry, didn't think.
That's okay. It's easy to forget that.
Okay, so you want to talk louder? Okay. Okay, we're talking about getting the jars ready. When you get your jars, I will always try to wash them, soap and water, because you know in the factories you don't know what's going on and whatever. So I wash them soap and water, and then depending on what I'm doing, if it's going to be something pretty hot, applesauce can be a little hot, but if they're still a little bit warm, then I don't do anything else to them. Or sometimes I'll just put. I have really hot water at home, and yeah, and I just put hot water in the jar just to keep it warm, you know. And I line up my jars like that with hot water. One thing, how many of you have ever canned? Or okay, you guys have not canned, okay. So what you're going to do, you're going to buy jars. I got some cheap ones from Walmart. They're the mainstays. You can get Ball. You can get others. The lids themselves, I'll show you in a minute, are better from other companies rather than Mainstay. But I have had fairly good luck with Mainstay, okay? So, well, I do not sterilize. I put really hot water in them, and I do not sterilize my jars. And I don't have any trouble. A lot of people will put them in the oven.
I do that. I do microwave. You can also do dishwasher. So just don't use, the only thing with dishwasher is when it does its cycles, there is a place where sometimes bacteria can be in the line. So I stopped doing that. I was doing dishwasher because it's so nice, because you know how many jars you can fit in a dishwasher. So and then I was using my oven, and you can use your oven, but my fastest way is I put 9 after they're clean, and when I store them after I clean them, I put them back in here. So don't get rid of this. This is really helpful. And and when I cut the plastic, I cut it like this so that I can put it right back over the top, you know, like that when I store them. Then when I pull them out, unless it's been real dusty, I just stick them right into the microwave like that. I'll put a dish of water in there because it'll get more steamy, which is better. And then I just hit 6 minutes. And that does a really good job.
And the way that we store our jars, different than that. But that's okay, because we don't have the boxes anymore. And then if you're buying them at yard sales or estate sales, you will not find the boxes.
Nope.
Paper grocery bags for quart jars. You lay 3 rows of 3 down. You got 9 in there. You tape it, roll it over, and tape it shut. Keeps the dust out, keeps the rodents out, or whatever else
Nice
that might
idea.
be running around.
Great idea. Yeah, and I do definitely recommend you do them upside down if you're and then I keep these separate.
I always store mine upside down too in the box. Now, as Melody said, these we keep separate, but you're going to get, when you get your applesauce tonight, you're going to have a ring on it just because you're going home. We're giving you the jar. Okay.
Now, Martha, do you usually do quart size or pint size for yourself and your household?
I do pint size for my husband and I because we don't use a quart size fast enough, and then I waste, and so like when we have waffles, it's applesauce on the waffles, and this is just enough for both of us. And stuff like that. So
Yep.
I do more of mine in
We do a
pints.
quart, but then we have a teenager, so.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yes, a lot of people, maybe most people, do sterilize their jars. I do both water bath and pressure canning. And, I figure
cooks it pretty
it gets
good.
hot.
Yeah.
It gets hot. So, okay.
You want to be sure they're clean, though.
Yes,
So.
you want to. I always make sure the jars are clean. I wash them quick, even the ones that I got off my shelf, that I'm reusing. I wash them. So then, if you have not canned before, there's these lids. Now this is different than the normal ones. Here's the normal lid that. I'm good right now. Here's the normal lid that you're going to get with your mainstays, They're a little bit thinner. They're a little bit, how things a little cheaper made and whatever. Some people have had bad problems with this. If I have, usually maybe I'll have one fail on from a dozen from mainstays.
I prefer ball.
Yeah.
I
And
get better results from that.
some
I've
people-
had mainstay.
A lot of people prefer ball, and that's what I usually use for myself too. I was just kind of doing this quick, and I just found this superb. I order it through Azure Standard. That I order my wheat and a bunch of things like that. Superb, and they're really a good company. It's a family-owned, made in the USA. So I just got these recently. Let's see, what else do we need to do? The whole thing with canning. Okay, our applesauce. You can check that.
Yeah.
Our applesauce.
They also don't heat these up anymore, right?
What? Yeah.
We used to have to put those
Balls, you heat them up. You don't heat them up. Most everything else, I could not find anything on this, so I heat them up. I heat my. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Turning the less cooked apples down to the bottom and turning the more cooked apples up to the top, and that will help it steam and cook faster.
Right.
And plus, it will keep it from burning.
Right. It won't take very long now.
Right. So once that moisture's come in contact with the apples, that whole steaming process happens a lot faster.
Martha, did you say that with the superb lids you don't have to heat them?
No, I do heat them. I couldn't find anything on it saying whether you did or not. And I've canned so long, and
That's how
it's
they used to do it.
yeah.
You would put a pot on the stove, get the water boiling on it, turn it off, throw those in, put the lid on, and it kept them hot. And the thought was that the heat would make the seal a little more, and also it would sterilize them.
It softens the rubber.
Although lately, Ball even was saying, I think, that you don't have to do that anymore.
Right. They say just wash them in soap and water.
Yeah.
So,
And rinse.
but it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Okay. So, you have your jars all ready. Oh, one thing I needed to tell you is if your jars are cold, you don't want to put hot applesauce in it.
Yeah.
If you want them at least warm, good and warm, but not totally cold.
They can break.
Yeah. Okay, so now that's not quite done. Almost
We're
done.
gonna start
Anything
that?
else we wanted to say?
We're good.
No, I don't want to start there because I want to add
Unless
that
you want
to
to
it.
talk at all about what we do with the lid.
Oh yes, that's a good idea. Okay, so when you're canning, when you put your product in here, one of the things that they will tell you, if you look on any canning recipe, they will tell you how full to fill your jars. And it'll say leave 1 inch of head space or leave a 1/2 inch of head space. And I forgot to bring my spacer. I don't go by that. I don't have to have something measuring, because at the bottom of this rim here is 1 inch. And about halfway up is a 1/2 inch. And on jams and stuff like that, they always say 1/4 inch head space. So
You need enough space for whatever's bubbling in there to have an air space to have that suction, which creates that pull, which locks it down.
and for applesauce, it's a 1/2 inch. Okay?
You have thicker things or things like, pie filling. Sometimes you have to have more.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because they'll kind
They bubble up more.
of,
Inch, yeah, Paul goes with 1.5 inches because that stuff is so thick and it expands and it will also siphon out.
yeah,
You know.
into your water in your can.
Yeah. Okay. So when you've filled it up to whatever space you're supposed to fill it, then, and usually you'll see us use, we'll use a funnel to do that. So hopefully we keep this fairly clean, but you can't always keep it super clean. So I use a paper towel or a clean rag with water on it and just clean that off. The paper towel I wet with water, or a lot of people say white vinegar, but unless you're doing something, okay, if you're canning meat or something that's really greasy, then you really definitely need to use the vinegar to cut the grease. All of that is to make sure that it's going to seal.
And of
Okay.
course, that would be pressure canning if it's neat.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is super important because this step is one that a lot of people forget, and it's probably the main one that causes things not to seal. If there's even a little bit of something on that top of that rim and you didn't wipe it off, then you can see why it could create a problem with a seal if there's something in the way.
The other thing that you want to watch for is a chip.
Yes.
A chip. Even a little tiny chip on the inside of it and will cause it not to seal. So that's one thing, even when you're cleaning your rims, that you're kind of watch that.
Right, so when you're preparing your jars right from the beginning, it's good to check that so that you don't go through the whole cleaning process and the whole sterilizing process and then find your chip. So it's always nice to check that first thing.
Right. Okay. So that's almost done. I want to talk. We'll talk about apple butter right now because I want to combine that applesauce with that applesauce, and then it'll be better. So you have your recipe for apple butter in your packet, and I guess I gotta pat myself on the back. I've won an award for this. it was an apple. Make anything you want out of apples, and there were about 6 entries, and I got a 1/2 bushel of apples. So sometimes I call it award winning. This was made up. I read a recipe. I was kind of following it, but I was kind of doing my own thing. and they chopped up their apples and they put them in a crock pot and to cook them and everything like that. Guess what? I don't do that anymore. But I left that in there in case you're not doing applesauce. So it says 6 pounds of peeled cored apples, chopped small. And I used the Gala Red Delicious and Honeycrisp that time, so that's a pretty good combination. Or the fast way is when you're making applesauce. 8 cups of this applesauce, and I mix it in with all those seasonings with, I use 6 ounces of frozen apple juice concentrate. So that's a half a can of apple juice concentrate, because then I don't have to use sugar, you know? Yeah. And so then I have 1 to 2 tablespoons of molasses. Last night I used 1.5 tablespoons of the molasses, and I hope it's good. I know it's good because I have tasted it today. But yesterday I was on a water fast and I couldn't taste it. I had to depend on my husband's taste. But anyway, molasses, cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, and vanilla. And you mix that up in your very large bowl with the applesauce and all the rest of it, and then you just put it in a 9x13 pan, a glass pan. Because I like my applesauce thick, pretty thick, and apple butter, pretty thick, and most of them, some people put it in a crock pot, but the crock pot just does not take enough.
I love this idea, because if you've ever tried to make apple butter, one of the things that will put you off is how long it takes to get thick like this. It's just crazy in a big pot like that.
Yeah, it takes forever.
This is brilliant.
And then you're having to make sure it doesn't.
You have to sit there the whole time, hours and hours.
So this I came up with myself. I thought somehow I've got to be able to do this. Put it in 9x13 pans in the oven. Turn it on. This is key. To no higher than 250 degrees. I did 350 one time. My dear husband was really sweet, and he cleaned the oven because it goes boop, 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 all over the oven. It was crazy. So you want it 250 degrees, and it can be for 6 to 8 hours, you know, but hey, put it in overnight. The
important thing is you can walk away.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's going to form kind of a crust, not exactly a crust, a film, you know. And even on the sides, it might look a little dark. And we were wondering if we should use it when I took it out this morning, but it tasted fine. It looks dark. It's kind of caramely or whatever, you know. And so then I put it in the blender, because that crust, you know, can form. And then all that crust and everything else, because applesauce underneath or apple butter underneath was a little lighter, but it just makes this beautiful dark apple, and you'll get a taste of that. Okay, so that's really easy. Once you're making applesauce, do your apple butter.
So any questions so far?
So when you wake up the next morning after that's been in the oven all night?
Make sure.
I've never done this, but I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, that must smell wonderful.
It does. It really does. Make sure you have some good toast or something, muffins or something to put it on. Okay, we're going to call this good.
If I had a blender, this would be perfect.
Right. This is a little bit, well, you'll see what happens in our thing here.
It's a little firmer than it was the other.
Yeah, it's not broken down quite as much, but we're not going to wait.
Now we could.
What?
Do you want to put some in there and then do that later? We could.
No, we'll run it through now. And you'll see, one of the other things you can do, I do this more, this thing can do tomato sauce too, okay? And when I run tomatoes, cooked tomatoes through it, then I put the skins back through, and you get more out of it.
Yes, gives it a nice flavor.
And I think you can do that with applesauce too.
Is it thicker when you put it through the second time?
No, well, yeah, a little bit maybe. What do you need? Oh, okay. So see, this is going to have a little more liquid in it because it's not quite as cooked down. But it's going to be okay. You'll see the difference in how much you bring out, okay? And why I say you get more applesauce. It might take a little bit longer to put through too. Okay. So I'm going to start getting ready to put stuff into the jars. I'm going to put the lids into the hot water here. Okay, like she said. Just put the lids in the hot water. It's not hot, but I can take pretty hot water. And that's just to get the lids, the rubber, getting softer. Okay, so far, any other questions about anything? Okay.
Does anybody want to see this more closely?
Yeah, you can come up if you want.
I have a question. So once you can, I think I've read you're not supposed to reuse the lids once it's sealed.
You're not supposed to reuse this lid,
Not that part.
okay? But you can reuse the
However, in
ring.
my sister's defense, when she went, they lived in Brazil for a lot of years and couldn't get lids. And they took them off very carefully and reused them time after time after time.
If you do that, you have to make sure that you have to be careful when you open them up, you know, with that little thing that lifts them. You have to be slow and careful, because if you torque this end here, it'll interfere with the seal. And if you notice that anything is bent or torqued, you definitely will throw that away. But it's kind of an emergency situation. Otherwise, no.
Definitely. And one of the things, Diana, can you hand me one of those?
We couldn't get those ones very well either.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, like I said, I'm sending you home with a ring because, of course, when you put it in the refrigerator after you've opened it, you need some way of securing it, right? So, what I do with the edge of a fork or knife is where it comes together and gets narrower here, you just kind of wedge it there, and you have to put pressure on it, you know, so, and you just wedge it and pull it up. Some people do it with their fingernails. I just can't do that. There is, and I was going to bring that today too, and I forgot. There's a little lid lifter or canning lid removal or whatever. It has two arms that go kind of like this, and in the middle here it has a little tab that fits underneath so it hits right here, and these two are up here to hold it, and you just lift it, and it lifts it up really nicely. But I got it as a Christmas present because they cost about $25. It's terrible, but my daughter says, "Oh, good, I'll get that for you." So, okay. Now, watch out. Okay, so we will mix this applesauce together, and then we'll show you how we're going to, and we have jars that are ready, right? Yeah.
That's a nice trick. While they were waiting, she
Yeah.
But you do want to keep the jars warm, because if you put something hot in something relatively cold, have you ever done that with a light in your bathroom?
Yeah.
Hit it with some water. Have you ever done that with a light? Yep. And that can happen with the jars out here, and it can happen in here. If the temperature is too cool when it goes in here, it can break them in there. So it's nice to keep it. In fact, I just turned this down. I had turned it up to boil, to get it hot, but I just turned it down because it needs to be kind of just hot and not super hot when it goes in.
Now, some people like to put a little cinnamon in it. You can do whatever you want, you know, or you can do it like this. You know what? Can we? Yeah. Some people put Red Hots in them or something like that. We'll have some of this out so that you can taste this too. So I just use a glass measuring cup as my dipper. And you gotta be careful where you're doing it, but. And I do just up beyond the. What I like about this is it hooks right on the side of the bowl or your pan. So, and then I do that. Okay, she's got that. She's cleaning it.
If I were doing another one right after, I flip it over and change the side.
You see, and one of the things that they always tell you, and I don't do all the time, is debubble it.
I hardly ever do that. So I take it like that, and it's a finger turn, just like that till it's firm. It's
Yes.
not
Right. What I always say, 3 or 4 fingers turning it, and just, you don't turn your wrist. Just turn it until, okay? And so there's your applesauce ready to go in there. And talk about what you need to do, how full you put it and all that, your water.
Okay, well, for me, I should probably take some out of there. I don't know. For my quart jars, I fill it up about halfway, like here. And this is an electric canner, so it's a water bath canner. A lot of them you stick on the stove, but I like this because in my kitchen, I don't always have as much space. What? Oh, no, talk about those, yeah. So, and I have an induction cooktop, and I don't want to overuse it because with canning, induction cooktops can be fairly expensive unless you have them like this. This is nice too. And so you don't want to overheat them because they can stop working sooner. Their lifespan shortens. So I always pull out my drawers underneath so that the fan can keep it cooling. And I usually keep a little bit of a silicone pad between my induction cooktop and my pan, my big heavy pot pan. And actually the induction can still go through it if you've got the right kind. And you can get those on Amazon. But what that does is that keeps this from getting too hot. So have you guys used induction before? You don't have to. But one thing neat about induction is this is the part that this does not get hot and transfer. It uses magnetic fields between the pan, and it heats the pan up. This does warm up because the pan is hot, but the neat thing about this staying relatively cool is if you have a mess, like a bubble over, I've many times when it's happened been able to shift my pan off and just wipe this down. You have to be careful with a wet paper towel, just thick, so it's not going to burn you. And then you can wipe it off, and it's not going to stick like a glass top heating, if you've ever had a glass top one. So, and you could even have something over here like an ice cube sitting, and it's not going to melt as quickly unless this got really hot. But it's the pan that makes it hot, not this that's hot. So
Paul, do you want to tell about your water bath?
Like she said, there's several different ways of different types of canners. The one that I use is just a water bath. Most of them come with a rack to pull the jars out with. I myself don't. I just leave them sitting in there. I don't use the rack. I take the jar lifter, pick them out as soon as they're done. I've never had a problem. And a lot of times with the pints, I can get one extra jar in by not using that rack. It cuts down a little on the time. Martha, is this your canner down here?
And I was going to say also, you can use any big stock pot for a canner. You know, if you have a big kettle that will fit your jars in it, and you can get enough water up an inch above the jars, then you could use any kettle. I know Paul says he hasn't had any trouble, and I haven't tried it his way, so I can't tell you. But if you want, if you find something like this is a trivet-like thing that comes out of my pressure canner, you know. And so you can just put this in whatever kettle. So the other thing that I want to show you for us, and I guess I have to confess that I am older. But one thing, carrying that thing, when I'm doing it by myself, and you have 7 quarts in there, and you have all the water to fill up above the 7 quarts, it comes to about 1.5 inches from the top. Yeah, the ring here. So you want to carry that with all that, especially if it's hot, if you're having to move it. That's not for me. Not anymore. So, a friend of mine told me about a steam canner. A steam canner can do everything you can do with a water bath canner. It is not the same as a pressure canner. A pressure canner you have to use for things that are low acid, green beans, potatoes. I can my own hard beans, you know, so they're like a store-bought jar, you know. And that all has to be done in a pressure canner. That's totally different than what we're talking about today. This is water bath canning for high acid things. Applesauce has high acid in it. So this is much better. This is the bottom where you put the water. You don't even fill this thing totally full. You put the plate in there. You fill water to the tops of these holes here. And then you put your jars on it. You can fit 7 quarts, or you can fit, I think, 9 pints in here. And you set them right in there, and you start your heat on it. One thing you go by is this little dial on the top, and this tells you about when it has reached the boiling or the steaming potential or point. When you buy one of these, it tells you, the instructions tell you how to calibrate it. You put like 4 jars of water without lids on, and you put this on it and you boil it until you see it doesn't raise any farther, and then you mark it. I have a little black mark right there. And it all depends on your altitude. And here we're less than 1,000 feet. And so you just mark it there. And so when I turn my burner on, and I make sure I put this on, and for me, I like this fruit saver pointing towards me because I can see this better, okay? And you see this little hole back here? steam will start escaping from that about the time it's getting almost to where it needs to be up here. So I watched this little red mark go up as it's going up. You can pass that around if you want. And you wait till that red mark gets almost to the black mark, and then you turn it down, start turning it down, because it does go over if you aren't careful. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but I don't, since I had calibrated it the way they wanted it, that's what I try to do. So the big thing, how long is it going to take this? How long is it going to take this to come up to boiling versus this? Very different. Very, very different. I can turn, if you're canning a lot in a day, I can turn over. This one takes a longer time to turn over, to get it up to heat again and all that kind of stuff. This I can turn over very quickly. It probably takes maybe 10 minutes to get up to, maybe.
It also does not heat up the kitchen as much.
Right.
Which is nice, especially if it's a warm day when you're doing it.
Right. So I can turn over batches in this really quick, because all I do is I wait for 5 minutes after it's done, after my time. Okay, applesauce is supposed to water bath for applesauce water baths for 15 minutes for pints, 20 minutes for quarts. Okay? So if I'm doing pints, after my 15 minutes of it being up to that steam line, after it's been there 15 minutes, then I can turn it off. 5 minutes later, I can take the lid off. Then I can put my jars. This I need to tell you about where to put your jars in a second. I can put my jars, I can take them out. I sometimes, because this is so hot, sometimes I'll pour half the water out and put some more in, and then put my next level on, or next load of jars on. Yeah. So anyway, what to do when you take your jars out. You see, she's using a jar lifter. It's really important to use the jar lifter when you're moving your hot jars at all, anytime. And so after my 5 minutes is over, and by the way, I think most of the time for water bathing, they always say 5 minutes too, before you take your jar out, because otherwise the pressure is too much. They're still boiling inside. So after that 5 minutes, then you take your jars with a jar lifter and you put them in a place where they can sit for 12 to 24 hours. Always put something down. I do mine on the floor in a protected area because I don't have enough counter space to waste for 50 jars or whatever. But I put towel or blanket or something, an old towels, on the floor and then put them on there. And you want to keep your jars, you don't do anything to them. Your ring might be a little loose. Your ring might, maybe I should tighten it. No, don't tighten it. Just take your jars out, put them on the surface where you're going to be, and let them sit for 12 to 24 hours, okay? And I didn't think, okay. Oh.
Did you
hand me one of those jars a minute, just a minute.
One of those?
Yeah. Okay, and then you check them. You check them and see if they have sealed or not. And they'll still have the ring on it when you check them. Sorry,
okay.
I should have. Okay.
Very hot.
Okay. So you check them. Hear that? Can you hear it kind of high pitched? Hear that? Okay? That's one way that you can check them. The other way you can check them when you're getting ready to put after the 12 to 24 hours, you can take your rings off. And a lot of people say, do that. Well, yeah, not too high.
What are you looking for with these two checks?
Whether it's sealed.
Whether it's sealed.
Whether it's sealed. Did you hear how hollow or?
They were different.
Yeah.
Because it's a vacuum inside when,
Yeah.
when
It's really high pitched, and then it has sealed. Yeah.
There's nothing more satisfying when you're pulling
Pop,
it
pop,
out and you hear that.
Bing, bing.
Yeah, you'll hear
Tells you
that.
it's sealing.
What did I just say I need
So
to
what do
tell
you do if it doesn't seal? That's right. And you can also check and see if it was. Sometimes if there's not a chip on the top, I'll just re-can it. I'll just check it, make sure the seal's good. Just wipe it again. Give me a new lid, and just stick it back in. If there's other stuff I'm canning.
I don't have a problem doing that with something like applesauce and stuff like that. But something like corn or something that you are pressure canning, I would not do that. I ended up using a lot of corn recently because I had a few, yeah. Anyway,
Question.
yes.
So you cook the apples, you smash it to make the applesauce, and then you put it in the jar. Why are you putting it in the? Why are you cooking it again? Why are you cooking the apples again in the jar after you cook them in the?
We are doing we're making a vacuum. We have to seal these because if the lid is on there, it doesn't seal.
That vacuum that happens is what keeps stuff in getting it. We sterilize it in here, and then the vacuum seals it sterilized so that nothing can grow in there.
Right.
So.
And I know that a lot of people sterilize their jars before, and the one reason I haven't had a problem, I don't have these fail later. You know what I mean? So, once in like 5 years, I've had one kind of lose its seal, and then you can tell, something's growing on it or whatever, But it's so, few and far between.
And I would say, I want to add just one comment about this steamer idea. I actually love this. I have a different one that does it, and it's like it can be like a cooking pan, but it also can turn into a steamer, and there's like a dial on it that does it. And I love it. It makes things a lot faster for me. But I did discover last year when I had a bumper crop of fruit in my orchard that it does better with stuff where everything is the same size, like with sauce. But if you put like pieces, like I had peaches and I had pears, and I used like pie filling stuff, and it didn't do as well. The timing. I noticed later that some of them had not sealed. They sealed, but then they unsealed.
That's interesting because I haven't had that problem.
So I need to figure out what was going on. And I actually put it in a little extra time too. So I figure it's just because this stays a constant temperature because it's a sauce.
Well, I've done peaches and I've done pears with this,
And maybe that works better than the one I've got. Because the one I have, it has a dial that you watch. And when it gets between this and this, so maybe it's actually not hot enough by that dial. Maybe you use time with this, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Any other questions? Have we covered everything, I think? Yes. Dehydrator. Oh, thank you. Paul has a really, can I move this yet?
Other neat things that you can do, it should be pretty much. Other neat things you can do with apples while you're doing this.
Not a time machine, not a miracle worker. Dehydrator. This model is the Excalibur food dehydrator, And you can put a lot of apples in. We set some in here and got them started. You can see them on the rack. Using that peeler core tool that I had. Yeah, there's some more. You put them in there, put the cover on the front, and it's set at a certain temperature, and it takes about 12 hours and they're done. It's one more way to preserve apples, and they're delicious for a snack. We've got some sample of them here for you somewhere.
And these are amazing in the wintertime. When you dehydrate them like that thin, and then you put them in the freezer, they're almost like a candy snack. My son just loved them. He was eating them all the time. They're a wonderful little healthy snack to even eat while you're watching something.
How do you keep them from turning black?
They don't.
Great,
They
good
don't.
question.
They just. We'll give you a sample. They don't turn black at all. I put them right in and I run them right away. 12 hours later, they're done.
If you do it quick.
What's that? No, it's just a screen.
Now, there are some types of apples that do better with not turning darker
It's just
colors.
a screen.
So if you get that type, what are a couple apples that I'm trying to think? I knew last year. I can't remember what
I
it
have
is.
no idea.
But if you have the kind of apple that you notice is turning, you can put a container with some water in it and throw some lemon juice into it. And then as soon as you're done, you immediately put them in there while you're waiting and doing the next bit.
And it doesn't make an awful lot of noise. That's what you hear. It helps you sleep at night.
We put it down in our basement. It doesn't have to be this. There's other dehydrators too.
There's a lot of different kinds. This is just the one I
This
chose
just
to
does
get.
a
So.
lot.
My sister has a Cabela's dehydrator, and it has 12 trays. And what I like, didn't see how close these are. What I liked about hers, they're deeper, and there's more space in between them, so it's easier. Like I have a very, very, very old Harvest Made. And they're very close together, and any leaves or anything, like herbs and stuff like that, you got to shove them down, and it's hard.
We used to have an old one, and you used to have to rotate the trays because they dry faster in the top or the bottom. This one drives very evenly for
And
me.
the reason is because it depends on where your air is coming from. On these kind, the air comes from the back and hits all of them more evenly than the ones that have, like the round ones and stuff like that. They have the fan in the bottom, so it has to go up through, and it's not as even.
Oh, you should tell them how easy it is. How easy it is to do that with your peeler.
Oh, the peeler goes real fast. You saw it when we were running them up here earlier. But the skin comes off one way, the core comes off, and you just slice them in half and lay them on a tray.
Stick it right here, 1/2 cut, and you've got all those pieces. And I want to say one other thing, too, about the canners. Some people, and I'm one of them, if you've got hard water, like well water or something where you've got a lot of minerals in your water, if you put about 1/4 cup to 1/2 of this in your canner, in the canner water, it helps keep the minerals from coating your jars, which will look all milky, kind of not very great. So it just keeps that off.
And Paul and Diana have, they don't do it. I don't do it either, mainly because I forget.
Does your water coat, does it have a lot of minerals in it? Does it coat?
I have
So then you wipe those
pretty hard
down.
water. What happens is if they turn milky, you just take like a metal scrubber, just scrub it.
You can if you do it this way, you don't have to really wash them.
And it doesn't turn white all the time for me.
That's true.
But when it does and I want it cleaner, I just take a metal scrubber and scrub it off.
Probably early on it wouldn't turn as much
And
until the water concentrates with minerals.
What Paul and Diana were saying was they have experienced their rings rusting more if they use the vinegar. I can't tell either way. I
haven't experienced it as long as I don't leave the rings soaking in the water for long periods.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's what I was going to say earlier about the rings. So every time if you buy a dozen jars in the store. You're going to get the jars and the lids and the rings, okay? And if you start canning a lot, then you're going to get all these rings. But you can reuse the jars, and you can reuse
And
the
the rings.
rings.
Yeah.
You just can't reuse the lid. So, and what almost everybody will say, do not store things with the ring on it, because if that seal fails, some people say that it'll explode. I've not seen that.
Well, and sometimes you won't notice it either.
You won't notice it as early. So we always store without the ring.
Then you can smell it quicker.
So after 24 hours, you'll notice after 24 hours everything is sealed. It's going to seal. That's the time where you take that ring off and just keep it off.
And I, as long as you wash your rings, I wash my rings. I don't even, unless it's something sticky, then I'll wash them in soap and water, you know. But most of the time, it's not sticky. I just swish them, and then I lay them up on a towel, you know, so that they drain. You know, you don't want them upside down. And then when they're dry, then I store them in a plastic bag. Or some people have taken the old coat hangers you probably hardly find, and they take them apart, you know, and then they put all the rings on the coat hanger.
I was going to tell you about this particular electrical canner too. They have like there's like a little turret type thing, that like a metal thing that you put on the bottom just to keep the jars off of the direct bottom. And so then I lowered them in, and then there's like a top piece, not sort of like that you put on top the jars then. And what that does is it helps control the bubbling of the water, because sometimes it can go over if you don't have something like that. And that one, it needs it. So, and then I will wait until you see vigorous boiling on top, and I start timing then. I turn it all the way over after I get them in. It started out at warm hot, and then I take it all the way to canning hot, all the way to the end. And then when it's vigorously boiling, that's when I start my timer. So 20 minutes. But you don't want to start it until it's vigorously boiling.
15 on these.
Pints, yeah, 15. I'm quarts. I'm thinking quarts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're going to. Do you have something else? No. Okay. We have some little things up here. We have apple butter on some crackers, and we have the apples, dried apples, for you to try. And we thank you all for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Each of you will get, each family, each household will get a jar of applesauce, and you can take it. Yeah, I told that earlier, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's have a little word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for being with us and for helping us to learn. I just pray that each person here will feel like they can do this, and that we can enjoy the fruits and foods that you give us for a longer time during the winter by doing this. Thank you for your love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Yes?
How long can you store it for?
2, 3 years, 4. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're usually going to eat it before then.
We can't go there.
It has to do with quality, so it might seal and stay safe, but the longer beyond 3 years you go, the quality, you'll notice it's not quite as sweet. Maybe, I don't know, but it's the texture, and I probably wouldn't go much more than 3 years, but I have heard people go 5 years. I've heard as much as 10, but I wouldn't go that far.
One thing I noticed with my applesauce, the very top kind of turns
Kind of a-
grayish, like, you know.
Almost like a little oxidation.
Yeah. So, but it's still good.
Still fine.
Okay. Okay, help yourselves.
I should tell you
Yeah.
that you don't have to can your applesauce. Let's just say it's winter time and you have some apples that were still in storage that's coming out, or you want to go down to Pagel's, or what was the name of that place again? It's not Pag-
Hildebrands.
it's not- it's
Hildebrands
now.
is what? Yeah.
So I think until what, April, they're often still selling apples
I
out of their
haven't
storage.
tried that late.
Anyway, you can go grab a bag and cut them down, put them in your pot, cook those things down, and make your own sauce, and then just throw them hot into a jar. Seal it just like you would for canning, only instead just let it seal that way. And that's not a sterilizing seal. That's just going to give you a seal. Let it cool. You're going to stick it in one of your refrigerators that you don't use a lot, and you can often go a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have some apple. Let's say the holidays are coming.
Or
You
some
want-
people will put them in some kind of a container to
Or you can freeze it.
You could freeze in a jar. I
Yeah.
would say leave a lot of headspace. Leave a lot of headspace. I have heard people do that.
Yeah, you can.
the jar before you put the lid on.
And not only that, make sure the jar is, make sure the applesauce is totally cold before you freeze.
Yes.
You know, if you freeze anything like bread and stuff like that, that's just slightly warm, it forms those crystals, you know.
Right.
So